I want products built to be built on Solana. That's all I care about. Startups, products, and things people actually use. That is the entire reason that I get up. And so I think we keep doubling down on this product thing because it seems like nobody else is interested in building product. They're just interested in random fucking tokens and weird bridges all over the place.
This episode is brought to you by Access Protocol. Access Protocol is the best way to get access to premium crypto content without the ads, without the annoying subscriptions that are impossible to cancel. It's crypto native. It's here today. Go check them out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lightspeed. Today, you have a roundup with me and Mert, and it is February 1st. It is the day after the Jupe launch. I have a tweet pulled up from you, Mert, right now. It says 7 coffees with theanine. You had to mark that. 1 Coke Zero, 1 vitamin water, half a bag of chili Doritos from Portugal, insane blood pressure, peak performance. Sounded like you had a great day yesterday.
Yeah, it was quite stressful. So, yeah, I mean, it was obviously one of the biggest airdrops in certainly crypto history, but also Solana history. And a lot of preparation went into that, much more than people would think. I mean, Meow even did a bunch of mock launches to make sure that the network was ready for it. And when these things go well, people are like, yeah, like it's boring, nothing happened. But like that's a really good thing because the alternative was the chain could have went down. And there was a lot of, you might have seen on Twitter, people were like, oh, I switched to Helios RPC and my transactions are now sending. And it's such a simple thing. It's you just flip your RPC and your transactions finally start sending. But that took us like 2 months of research and just like 18-hour days just to get close to that. So yeah, today I had about 3 hours of sleep recovering from that day. But overall, from an infrastructure perspective, I think pretty solid success. Obviously, there's a lot of work to do and a lot of misconceptions I would like to clear up this episode about what is an RPC problem, what is a chain problem, what is a fee problem, all these things people conflate. And I saw a few takes about, oh, Solana can't even serve 0.001% of the world's population, which, okay, that's not really the goal. And then that's coming from chains who can't even serve 12 TPS over 7 years now. So, yeah.
I feel like it's getting pretty hostile on Twitter right now. I don't know if that's just been the last week, and this is directed at the Solana community, but really every community. And I don't know if we're coming to like the end of narrative exhaustion right now and people are just getting upset. I don't know what's happening. I mean, price is going down a bit. I see the modular versus integrated community. And I think as well, like Solana has been the underdog for more or less the last year, obviously. Right now, it's gotten a lot of attention and people are coming out and talking about it. Let's save the comments on what we think about how the tokenomics or whatever you want to call it, how that went. Let's stick on the infrastructure for a second. I saw, for example, like Soulflare, they came out saying, I think 30% of their customers or users were interrupted from actually interacting with the chain. From what I've seen, it's like the chain itself is fine. The median fee and the average fee behaved as you would think, in the sense that the average fee went up because obviously people are trying to get in the block very quickly, but the median fee, which is just what the average user pays, stayed the same, which is exactly how these local fee markets are supposed to work. But I'm sure there was some degraded user experience. So Mert, maybe just comment on what you saw out there.
Yeah, so the Soulflare thing, it's important to note, was totally a Web2 issue. So Soulflare, what they do is when you send a transaction to via their wallet, it goes to their servers. The servers are in Google Cloud, and then they go back to they route it to different RPCs. But so before they even get to the RPCs, the Google Cloud server is what actually broke. Because I mean, people think Web2 engineering is like whatever, but like it's actually still pretty hard. It's no piece of cake, especially at that scale. And the team did a pretty solid post-mortem on that. And it's interesting because that is a pure Web2 problem that people will still blame on the RPC, which had absolutely nothing to do with it. But anyway, so like I was joking to my team, we run a war room during the call, and people were like blaming like other people's RPCs, not even ours, because like ours worked pretty good. And then I was thinking like, okay, if I'm like Black Friday shopping and the website takes too long to load, I don't just say like, fucking AWS EC2 instances, god damn you. I say like, damn AWS or something, or Amazon. But here we just directly blame the infrastructure provider. So instead of the app. And anyway, so that's one thing. In terms of issues, I mean, the issues we've talked about in like the past 3, 4 episodes now with Eugene, Tolley, Liam, and Lucas, they're pretty much the same issues, which is to say that the fee markets aren't fully deterministic, which means when you pay a fee, that increases the probability of your transaction landing, but it doesn't guarantee it, and it reduces confirmation time, but it also doesn't guarantee that it will land. So, and then obviously there's the bot spam issue, which we can talk about later. People actually, Jupiter took some measures to prevent bot spam, but then people thought that those measures were predatory. And it's like, you just can't win. Like you're going to get, somebody's going to complain either way. But the issues were actually pretty much the same. The one thing is we noticed, so I noticed about 2 months ago, and I made a post about this, that the sends on Solana, like sending transactions, was heavily degraded. And I asked my CTO and our engineers, like, hey, we need to fix this as much as we can, because the one thing people don't understand about RPCs is RPCs are your liaison to the blockchain. They're not the blockchain itself, right? So they help you read data or write data to the blockchain, but they cannot control how the blockchain functions. So like when your transaction gets sent from the RPC to the blockchain, if it doesn't confirm on the blockchain, that is not necessarily the RPC's fault. That is, the blockchain has inherent limitations. So, for example, like if I'm on a bus in my city and there's an earthquake, I don't blame the bus. Okay. So, back to the thing with my team, we implemented a few new ways of sending transactions on Solana, and we noticed about 4 to 5x, which is a lot, increased probability of landing transactions on chain with some of the methods we added. And a few teams used this yesterday, and you probably saw on Twitter, they were. I was actually pretty surprised by how much positive press we got. Everybody was like, well, we switched to Helios and it started confirming. And there's obviously some randomness to that. So like, I don't want to take all the credit. It just depends. I guess probability was on our side, but also there was a lot of different improvements that we made. And the important thing is, with those improvements now, we know what changes need to be made going forward on a network level. And so this was actually, and Gort, I think, made a funny post about this, about like, we're stress testing, guys. But it's actually true. It's funny, but it's true, which is to say that there's a lot of other airdrops coming, and there's a lot of, if your time horizon for the space is, not 1 year, this is just maybe 0.1% of the time horizon. Like, it's just the beginning. And so there's a lot of things that we learned that we're now able to implement going forward that will drastically improve performance and the user experience on just an RPC basis, but also on a network basis.
Yeah, that's good to know. I've been thinking about this too. I mean, Jupe is the most hyped airdrop probably in Solana's history, and it's the most hyped airdrop in crypto for a while now. I think there was like almost 1 million wallets that were involved. It's 10% of the supply, 500,000 wallets actually claimed. I saw an interesting stat, which is probably pretty normal. It's like the smaller wallets, like if you just grouped them like that had X amount of jupe versus Y, the smaller wallets actually more than likely like 70% of them dumped all of their jupe, whereas the bigger wallets actually held on to them. So it's almost like the whales actually held on to the jupe that they have. There's been a lot of controversy, but I think the thing I just want to take away from the Twitter timeline is it's absolutely ridiculous how crazy people go when their free money doesn't go exactly how they want it to go. I really don't understand. It's like you could have done this airdrop in so many different ways that would have been maybe a little bit more simpler, straightforward. But the whole point of this and what Meow's been talking about is that they're trying to push the limit here, learn new things. Like you said, this is a stress test. They want to have a launch pad. It's called like the LFG launch pad. They were one of the first, or they are the first user of this. They like dog fed their own product. There's going to be more tokens that do it in the future. I just think it's crazy. I saw Hasu, who I really respect, called this the biggest grift, and that there will be case studies on it.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, man. I'll pull up the tweet actually on the recording. I'd love to talk to him about it because I really do respect Hasu. And it's not that I think that the Jupiter team's perfect or Meow is perfect. I'll say one thing. Meow's been so open and transparent about all this. The whole thing is like, oh, it was in the docs. Like the details of how this drop were going to go in the docs, people just didn't read it. And that's what people are complaining about. Like, oh, you expected me to read that, or like, oh, there's better ways to do this. And it's just like, it's all a testing mechanism and no one had to buy the token. You didn't have to buy Jupe's token. Like, it was just a pool sitting there that people bought and sold out of. So I think all the complaints are overdone. I do think Meow is great at being transparent, but the amount of communication he puts out there on Twitter, Reddit, and different forums, it's like so, I'll call modular. It's impossible to know the source of truth. And I think that's something that crypto kind of has a problem with in general, is like, where would you go as an airdrop claimer to actually know what's going on? And I think that's something that'll be solved in the future as things aggregate, hopefully. But I'm just curious what you think about it, because there's been a lot of hate. It's, to me, all unnecessary and just part of the ride in crypto. But yeah, what do you think?
I'm looking at that tweet from Hasu, and I'm not sure if I should just stop this episode and just put some sense. Like, so his tweet is, "I like Solana. Friends know I've been recommending it, but damn, are some people, especially certain VCs, losing their marbles over it and succumbing into mindless shills." So, to be clear, this is coming from somebody who invested into Blast. Okay, so if we're talking about mindless shills, I will just call that out. And you know, this modular versus monolith thing is honestly one of the most deceptive framings of marketing I've ever seen in history. Okay. So people like to shit on Solana, and Solana has received, like, I don't know, some $100 million in funding as the chain itself. And then it's on the teams building on top of them to raise funding. And those are actually generally product teams, right? Like a Drip or like a Dialect or a Tensor, etc. But then you look at the EVM and this modular world, okay? And obviously there's Ethereum, which is a fair launch. I think good token distribution. Okay, but then you look at everything built around it. Okay, so Hasu is saying that VCs have lost their minds over it, while not realizing that how many hundreds of billions of dollars have went into scaling something that just doesn't scale, right? With centralized servers governed by a non-multisig, in some of the cases, including Optimism, and these DA layers, and now even L3s. Okay, it just boggles my mind that people early to this industry talk about Solana as some VC chain, where if you do the math, it has received much less VC funding than even like a fraction of the modular roadmap. Okay, I mean, the data is right there. And then you saw these people saying stuff like, "Oh, Solana was congested yesterday." It's like, okay, Solana was congested at 2,000 TPS and like a thousandth of a cent at fees. Okay, I think that is a pretty big improvement over being congested at 12 TPS at $50. Okay, and so if you are this person that is, let's say, a proponent of crypto and the entire industry's future, then you have to applaud that. Okay, I don't care what you think about whatever the ecosystem's token distributions are, ecosystem teams distributions. If you care, because your entire roadmap is now focused on scalability, if you care about this proverbial future about blockchains, then show some respect to the one blockchain that has clearly started from scratch, right? It didn't just fork the EVM, it built its own VM and just took all the different design choices and actually still scaled while being battle tested in prod. Okay, like it is. I get so triggered at the amount of disrespect that people show simply because they had some random bags left over from 5 years ago. Anyway, I will stop there. I don't even think I answered your actual question because I don't remember it.
We don't need to get into the technicalities of this, but essentially the big complaint was the open market sale of Jupe, that they had a liquidity pool to put liquidity in the market, and they basically set a price and a valuation that they were willing to launch at if you wanted to buy from that pool. And that was in a range of 4 billion to 7 billion. So that's how they set their liquidity range. And people bought from it. But also 50% of the token supply is going to the community. Jupiter has built one of the best products in the space. I don't care if the team gets really rich. And they've been transparent about it. That's the whole thing. It's like, sorry if you didn't read the docs. But anyways, I won't comment too much more on there. Actually, one thing that I did find interesting, just because I'm a huge fan of Chow, So right now, Jupiter's sitting at like a 6 billion FDV, fully diluted valuation, which is more than all the dexes that are underneath it. So like Linfinity, Radium, Orca, and the others. And his point was there: what drives value? Attention drives value, and where does that attention go, or where is it directed? And that's the front end that you interact with. And he's like, that's where the front end or the aggregator likely will actually accrue more value than the protocols underneath it. And that's obviously something I've been preaching on this podcast for a long time. So it'll be interesting to see that play out. And it's really interesting on Solana because we see these protocols vertically integrating. We see that from Jupiter with their multiple products, and we also see it with Lido that I talk about. But 6 billion valuation is pretty crazy. It won't be if crypto actually takes off in the future, but it's actually valued at a higher valuation than Uniswap. And they're different products. Uniswap is a DEX, whereas Jupiter is an aggregator. But it does show you how much attention is being brought to Solana right now, and that's also bringing all this negativity. So I don't know where things are going to go over the next few weeks. I feel like it's going to be a little bit of a crazy cycle that we're going through. What do you think's next for you, Mert? What are some takeaways that we can apply from Jupiter right now going forward, at least in Solana? What are some positives we can take away? Because like you said, it's a whole ecosystem effort to do something like this Jupiter airdrop. Now, we don't want that to be a thing in the future, right? Because ideally we have a lot of different protocols doing this on like a weekly basis, and we can't all be like stressing over this every single day. So how do you look at the roadmap ahead?
The thing that I'm concerned with the most, and where all our attention will be going to, is just engineering. Okay. I have set up a research chat for Solana, and there's a lot of smart minds there talking pretty frequently about different incentive designs and economic designs and the future of Solana's SIMD proposals. Solana Labs just split from into two. We can talk about that in a bit. And so there's that part, but there's a lot of just pure engineering problems, right? So for example, sending transactions on chain is one. Reading data in some cases, or indexing it, or viewing like source code on the explorers and stuff. Those kind of or like just better smart contract tooling, right? There was that whole thing about Rust and Move and Solidity the other week. And I see Solana as the product chain. So I think I saw something like modular money today, or some
You
weird
did. It's
celestial thing.
everywhere.
Okay.
Mert, I've tried to be you today, and I'm just shilling back memes against that because I feel like the whole community on Twitter right now is like modular money, modular money. Even John Charb is writing an article, I think that comes out tomorrow, about modular money. I don't know if it's pro or against it, but yeah, you're dead on.
Yeah. So I'm not going to comment on if that's good or bad. But one thing I will say is it clearly exists. And what I mean by that is, before I said Solana is a product chain, and that's because it seems like everybody else in crypto is super obsessed with literally everything but product. Like it's just some weird token shit, or some restaking, or whatever weird designs and stuff. It's because they have to, right? Because they can't scale. I'm like, it's just what it is. If you go to an Ethereum conference, they do not talk about product nearly as much as they would, as you would hear in a Solana conference. It's just not something, like to talk about product. You first need somewhere to build a product, and on Ethereum you can build certain types of products today, but you certainly do not have the same design space you have on Solana. And so, like going back to the previous question, which is what's the focus, the reason we focus so much on the engineering, and I'm just speaking for myself here, other people might have different opinions. I don't represent Solana. And the reason to do that is because I want products to be built on Solana. That's all I care about. Startups, products, and things people actually use. That is the entire reason that I get up. And I think we are already seeing that. So there's a lot of, I was thinking about, like, okay, what are the best consumer apps in crypto? And I do think a disproportionate number of those, especially given the amount of capital that's went into all the different other ecosystems, a disproportionate amount of those are on Solana. Like Helium, Hivemapper, Tensor, Magic Eden, Phantom, right? Drip, Dialect, Backpack, Tiplink, Solana Pay, like it's just Render even. Solana clearly has this focus. And I was thinking, like, okay, what are the best other products that maybe I'm just too blind in my echo chamber to even notice? And I say, okay, I really like Farcaster. That's a good one. Uniswap, you have to show respect to. Aave, you have to show respect to. You could maybe say friend tech, although I'm not sure if it's really around that much anymore. But that's about it. I mean, maybe Zed Run back in the day, but like we have photo finish. And so if you look at the amount of funding that is went into these, let's say you split it up into Solana and not Solana, and the amount of capital and attention in, let's say, FUD, if you take all that into consideration and then you see the outcome, which is the number of useful products and consumer facing successful products versus the other ecosystems, I think the ratio there is really interesting. And I think that's what you double down on. Okay. And which is why Helios builds on Solana, is because we want to give people that want to do that the tools to actually achieve that. And then there's efforts like the Solana Labs Incubator, which we had Iman to talk about a few months ago. And then now there's Coliseum, which is the Y Combinator of crypto, which is on Solana. And so I think we keep doubling down on this product thing because it seems like nobody else is interested in building product. They're just interested in random fucking tokens and weird bridges all over the place.
Maddie, who co-founded Coliseum, he just came on the podcast and he's like the king of hackathons in Solana. The number one thing when he talks to teams that they look for when they're coming from Web2 to crypto is like, where are the successful apps today? What are they doing and where are they? And that's why for Solana, it's such a big deal that, like you said, there are a lot of apps in the space that, yeah, it doesn't have mass adoption. Nothing in crypto has mass adoption. But relatively, like if you're a new founder coming from Web2 and you're looking where to build, you see infrastructure in ETHLand and then you see some actual apps in Solana. And that's like another reason to go like, okay, I guess I'm going to go over there and try to build it. But now you have L2s. Sure, they have training wheels, but you can at least build products, but they're not focused on that. It's just all on infrastructure. So I'm kind of getting tired of it too, Mert. I think we need a new narrative or like everyone's just going to get exhausted. And I think that's what's happening. And that's why there's a lot of hostility on the Twitter timeline right now.
Yeah, I mean, which is why I said I think what we need to do is double down on the product thing. Like, I tweeted about how crypto has like this massive bullshit problem. And Ted from Code kind of said this in one of our previous episodes. Since there's nothing tangible, or there's few things that are tangible, you don't have much reality to work with. You don't have that much data or facts to work with. And so what people do is they work with stories. And when you do that, the best storytellers are the ones who dominate. And the best storytellers are never or rarely actually the engineers themselves. Okay. And so then you get underwater basket weaving majors lecturing engineers on how to build like literal databases. It just, I don't even know how to, I still get angry every time I think about that. But, and then, so we do this we've done this for years now. Okay.
Yeah.
This isn't like crypto didn't just start yesterday. It's been around for years. Like the reason why there aren't many apps, and there's many, one of them is, first of all, you just never had this platform, like a smart or a contract platform that is cheap, fast, and scalable. I would argue that didn't exist until like a few months ago, until Solana's fixes went live, which it's still not perfect. Okay, now you have that, but then now you have an incentives problem and a bullshit problem and a VC problem, and half the VCs aren't actually VCs; they're actually swing traders that say they're VCs. I'm hearing some deals closed or getting closed of some teams that I know can't build, that are actually super incompetent, and they're getting valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, and they don't have a product, but they will have a token. And so then what happens is everything gets blurred. And so all that is to say, I think the antidote to that is obviously calling that out, but really, really doubling down on product. Like, this is where you build products. You can do your fun games somewhere else. I mean, you can gamble on Solana too. It's pretty good for meme coins. But really, it's my mission for the next year is attracting the Silicon Valley types or the international like entrepreneur types to build products. And when they want to build products, there's going to be nothing that serves them better than Solana right now in production. Okay, it's I mean, I'm happy to be convinced, but I have not seen anything that can actually scale with products currently.
Quick break to tell you about Access Protocol, the easiest and best way to stay up to date on what's happening in crypto by following your favorite publishers. And you can do all of it without a subscription, without having to worry about ads. And we all know subscriptions. How many do you have? 10, 20? Can you cancel it? It's all a mess. Well, Access Protocol solves this, and they do it in a crypto native way. They have over 60 publishers that include CoinGecko, The Block, CryptoSlate, and a whole long list of independent creators. So how it works is you find your favorite publishers and you stake the ACS token. That's the access token. And once you stake, you have access to all that creator's content without the hassle of ads or subscriptions that you can't cancel and you don't know how many you have. Access Protocol already has over 225,000 users that are finding new creators, that are reading content, and even receiving NFTs from these creators. Because one of the cool things with Access Protocol is that these publishers, they can know who their subscribers are. They can make it where, okay, maybe we'll do an in-person event, or maybe we'll do an NFT drop, and we'll do it only to our most loyal stakers, aka readers. In early 2024, they're even releasing V2. It's crypto native, it's on Solana, and it's an awesome product. Got a link in the show notes to the hub. It's the easiest way to get started, so go check them out today. Mert, I got a question on that. So on Empire, they just had Hasib, who's from Dragonfly VC, that's been in the space a long time, and also Vichul, I think it's Electric Capital where he's from. Hasib was saying that essentially, is Solana only going to be for these high performance applications in finance that need this type of speed decentralization compared to something that's like a social app or maybe an NFT project have no need to be on Solana? And an example there would be like, if you have a Ferrari, should you really be driving that if you're going through Arkansas? Like, maybe not. You should keep it on the track. So my question is, when you're seeing these people build apps and when you're looking at these hackathons that you've done some judgments for, do you think that Solana should be where all these different applications are coming no matter what sector they're in? Or do you think it should only be these financial applications like payments and finance?
I think it's a matter of time horizons. I think long term, I can certainly see once the modular, or I'm not going to say modular anymore, once the roll up roadmap gets its bearing, right, let's say, and the scaling actually starts to happen, and the scaling is actually decentralized instead of completely ruled by AWS servers. Okay, so once that happens, let's say in 5 years, whatever, full day sharding goes live, then yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if certain use cases don't concentrate on certain architectures, right? Like if you're a standalone game that just has no interaction with anything else outside your game, then you don't need to build on Solana. Like, okay, but right now, that's kind of your best option, okay? And then, so then there's the argument, okay, well, if these people are building on Solana because they literally can't do it anywhere else right now, which is where only possible on Solana comes from,
yep,
then is there a network effect there such that these people now build tools and then that's impossible to tell how it'll play out. But I just look at reality. If you're a Silicon Valley type and you want to build some sort of product that actually needs the blockchain on a low fee, high speed basis, you don't have another choice right now. And I know people say that, there's other alt ones, alt ones and whatnot. But like, first of all, they either have like 30 validators or they haven't been battle tested. And so you're taking on massive nonlinear risk there. We know what happens to Solana if there's massive risk or congestion or let's say gray swan events. We know it bounces back. We don't know that with these other things yet. And so that's a risk it's up to the builder to take. But going back to like Hasib's point, I think that is directionally correct if you take the very, very long-term approach. Of course, some use cases will concentrate on certain. So for example, Deepin is on Solana. And I think that's going to keep getting stronger because you do need the low fees there, and you do need the isolated fee markets, and you need everything that Solana offers for that. But and so an order book, for example, you need it as well, depending on how you do the order book. But like you generally need it, and for payments, I do believe a giant state machine is much better than a bunch of kind of different rollups because that's technically kind of how the financial system already works. But that's not to say rollups have no use if you're fine with isolated states. And I know there's like these Polygon aggregation layer things now, but like, come on, those things.
This is obviously not a good thing, but Polygon, I think, let go 19 or 20% of their staff today.
Yeah, I did see.
It is crazy. They've raised so much money over the last few years. Obviously, it built out a number of products, also acquired products, and have grown so quickly. But it's like a lack of focus maybe has resulted in them not having one product in particular that's really paid off. And I know I just cut you off, but just to say, I think that's been Solana's superpower, that it's like focused on a very specific thing and had high intentionality, which is low fees, high speed, low latency, and high throughput. And that's like all they talk about. And I think that's the reason why Solana is still here. And as a new founder, when you're looking where to build, like you said, Solana has been stress tested so many times. and it's come back. And I think really as a founder, that's probably the number one thing I'm looking at when I'm thinking of where to build. Because I do not want to go somewhere when things go wrong. It's like when picking a founder, it's easy to find someone that you get along with when things are going well. As soon as something breaks down, that's when things go south, and you want to know that you have a partner you can rely upon. And I think that's like what founders are looking for with change as well, on where to build. And that's been Solana's superpower.
Yeah, I think focus is super key. And in fact, I've actually criticized Solana for, I don't think, having enough focus. I like this whole idea of generalized L1s is an interesting one, but I wonder if it makes that much sense because, in my view, some certain cases don't even make sense that much on Solana. I mean, you can use them, and currently it's actually the best place to build them. But in 5 years, maybe it's not so much the most suitable option. And so, do we focus on a few verticals like DePIN and payments and DeFi, for example? But yeah, I mean, it's it's not a good thing to hear people getting laid off. I do think Polygon, at least on the outside, it seemed like they had a lot of different focus areas and they would get made fun of pretty frequently for that. And for what it's worth, they did have a change in leadership. So Mark, who's a new CEO, probably understood this better than the old leadership, let's say, who I'm not even sure who that was. But I don't even think this is just Polygon. I think some other chains also have this issue, which I don't think I'm going to name, but
You had a tweet the other day that, which I really like about you, is you say you're obviously in Solana, but you said like interesting tech that I'm looking at. I think you may have put like Sui, you put Avalanche, you put Near. Is that just you reading this stuff on Twitter, research, or are you talking to founders in these other ecosystems too?
it is generally the teams that I generally like. What I say I like, I generally have talked to those teams directly, which is because otherwise I'm kind of flying in the dark. I did. I mean, I've looked at, and I frequently read up on most of the different architectures and what people are doing. And the teams that I do like, I actually talk with directly. So, for example, I was talking about how certain L2s aren't even decentralized or even have like a path to it and stuff. And then Aztec showed me like, here's our proposal for it, here's our future roadmap, and they just directly give all the facts. And then, so after I talked to the team, I'm like, okay, this is actually a pretty solid team, pretty underrated, and should be applauded for their efforts there. And Near is the same thing. A lot of people from Near, I talked to on Twitter at least, and same with Avalanche. I mean, we've had those guys on here. And then maybe 2 weeks ago, I made a post about like, okay, which do you prefer between Sui and Aptos? And so that sparked up, let's say, a conversation. And the reason I like Twitter so much is because it's kind of like a battleground of ideas in a sense. Obviously, it's not perfect because sometimes, most of the time, there's a lot of bullshit and out of context interpretations. But there is signal there, at least some. And when I see somebody from Aptos talking about, hey, here's why we're right, here's why they're wrong, and here are the points why, I think that's sweet. Okay, like I think now I know how you think, I know how you behave, I know how you conduct yourself, and I understand the story better. And then if I see that repeatedly, so like consistently, maybe is a better word, from everybody on the team, but then also the community members, then I'm like, okay, you guys have focus, you have some sort of cohesive vision here, and I think your probability of success, all things considered, is higher than it was before when I just didn't have this information, right? Because before, until you tell your story, you're just some name on a piece of paper, but then you tell your story, and then some people actually will just dislike you, which is actually good for you because now you get attention, or they like it, in which case you get more people joining you on the journey, which is again all tied together with the one thing that I always want to tell people, which is just fucking write something and then share it with other people and then see what they think and keep evolving that, right? It's the most underrated hack I've ever seen for doing anything in any space. Like it doesn't even matter if you're a cook. Like literally, if you're a cook and you work at like the keg, if you just write about like how to make food you'll probably get a following from that just because so many other people want to know how to do that. And it's especially true in crypto where, again, the bad part is, and the good part, so the bad and the good is that the stories do dominate right now. And so, but the stories that are backed with data are the ones that will endure over the years. And so, if you're telling the right story with the right data, not only are you increasing your probability of success, you're also increasing the probability of success for the whole industry.
So
Yeah.
it's if you have data and you're telling a story, that's great. If you're telling a story with no data, you're a basket weaver. Is that right?
Well, you could of course make arguments without data that are coherent logical structures, right? That is kind of how math works,
Mhm.
right? Like you make definitions like let there be a vector space where each member of the vector space is defined as this, whatever, and then you kind of go build like an abstract house basically with these different structures. And so you can make pure logical statements. And that's fine. The problem is like that is super rare in crypto. For example, I said something as simple as, so since Celestia and Ethereum both offer data availability to rollups, does this not mean they compete on some level? And everybody's like, oh, no, 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 they don't compete. That's bizarre. And somebody from Celestia was even like, "Oh, Solana people are now mad. The Monolith boys are mad. Ha ha ha!" Like it's like, what, man? I just said you guys are offering the same resource to the same customer, priced in different tokens. That's competition.
Yeah.
That is a logical sentence that you can't disprove. It's just common sense. So the politics are just bizarre.
And it's modular money versus ultrasound money now. Like it is the same product that they're trying to build in just different ways, but they don't want to claim that they're competing. And that's fine. You know, early on, no one wants to say they're competing. You're just growing the pie. And to some extent that's true because we're still really early. But you want some competition as well. If there's no competition, I probably wouldn't do a lot of things. Like that's what actually drives me. It's what drives people. That's why I actually love pushing back on the modular thesis. I feel like a lot of people, except outside of Solana or maybe some maxis, like not a lot of people push back. Everyone's just kind of leaning into it because, like, by market cap, Ethereum still dominates the space outside of Bitcoin, right? So you need some friendly pushback, and Mert, that's what me and you are here for. I think you actually got called out this last week by some random troll on Twitter as being the most uninformed user in the space.
No, it's awesome. It's generally what happens is like these types will say something that is kind of correct about Ethereum, although even not always. Because like people don't understand, I actually used to work at Coinbase, so I know Ethereum, I know Polygon, I've built systems for these things. I like it's not like I'm some podcaster, pure podcaster who does nothing but look at these things on
Watch
Twitter.
yourself. Oh, we lost Mert again. I think I canceled him after that comment. Okay, he's joining back.
Bro, Brave just I think Brave just it just keeps the entire browser keeps going down.
Why are you using Brave for your normal browsing?
No, I just do it for the tracking
For
stuff.
the bats?
No, I used to do that. Actually, that's one of the reasons I got into crypto. But
Same. It was
um,
this. It was the second token I ever bought. Was bat.
I didn't even buy it. I was just earning it
Oh,
and then
you
going to
earned
like
nice.
I think I was going to uphold and like selling it. Which yeah, so that was fun. Um, yeah, so as I was saying, there's these types of anon accounts on Ethereum now who kind of understand Ethereum in some sense, although not fully. And this particular gentleman, for example, did not know what an inactivity leak was on Ethereum, which I talked about many months before it actually happened. Actually, when it did happen, Ethereum had a loss of finality incident a few months ago. And this person, since they barely understand Ethereum, now comments on Solana, which they absolutely don't understand. In fact, this particular idiot thought that Solana's biggest competition was Arweave. I was
Oh, I
like,
saw that.
what? And so this is actually this is what came from the Celestia versus Ethereum competition, right? He's like, oh well, they compete about as much as Solana competes with Arweave, and it's like that is such a fundamental misunderstanding of how anything works in the space that you should never be allowed to post again until you go through some drastic mental makeover. Like that's crazy. And then, so then obviously they get salty when you dunk on them, and then this particular person just quote tweets me. Like, if you look, I have a screenshot, about 6 or 7 times in a row. He only talks about me. And then I ratioed him like by a lot. I think it was like 300, 400 likes or something. And then he gets even more salty and he just keeps going more. And so it's he's like, oh, this guy's a self-proclaimed engineer, but this guy literally doesn't know how to code at all. And so I'm just like, how am I a self-proclaimed engineer? Like, I don't even know what that means. Um, and so Twitter has gotten really interesting lately from, I think, Ethereum folks, and not like legit Ethereum folks, by the way. Like legit,
Yeah.
genuine Ethereum
Yeah.
folks are generally pretty aligned in, or generally they're pretty intellectually honest. They'll challenge you, but they'll be fair. And most of them are on Farcaster anyways. And they're pretty solid people, and they're the pioneers of the industry. But then you kind of have the new wave of weird troll maxis who are just always spewing random nonsense. And it's always a challenge that I have internally. I'm like, do I reply to this person and
Yeah.
just, or do I not reply to this person? But like the past few times that I didn't reply to them, this kind of like goes from like 5 likes to 1,000 likes, and then it's like too late. And so it's just such a weird game theory that I don't quite know how to navigate.
I know. I felt the same way. Obviously, when you engage, it's like 10 times more people engage as well. But Mert, I do. Before we close out, I want you to comment. I think you tweeted out today is the start of Solana's writing hackathon that I think you helped put together. Can you maybe describe what that is and the goal?
Yeah, so to no surprise, I've been talking about writing quite frequently. And what this came from was I was watching sci-fi movies, or just trying to pick one. And I was like, there's like a sci-fi movie about pretty much everything except crypto. And the only time I see crypto mentioned in media in terms of like TV or movies is literally the only case is when somebody takes somebody's daughter for ransom and then demands Bitcoin in return. That's like the only case of crypto I've seen in TV. And so then I'm like, okay, maybe these people just lack imagination. But then it's like, okay, wait, I can't really blame them because there's no like science fiction books about crypto. There's so many about AI and space and robots and whatnot, but there's nothing about crypto. And so I was like, okay, maybe the best way to fix that is just host like a competition, and encourage more people to write short stories or like novels about crypto they can be totally fictional. That's completely besides the point. I mean, everything else in this space is fictional, anyways, that you think is real. Okay, and then you combine that with the lack of documentation that Solana has and the lack of research. And then it's just, you work backwards from those and you're like, okay, well, maybe a good solution to that is a hackathon where people focus only on writing, like docs, content, research, economics research, token research, guides, and short stories and poems and stuff like that. And I say this like it took like a lot of thought process or something, but like really it was just like some random late night. And then I was thinking for like 5 minutes and I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to tweet this and see what happens. And it got attention. So I was like, okay. And that is, by the way, how I do most things, which is to say that I'll like a random idea that's not fully fleshed out. I'll tweet it or say it to somebody. If it gets traction, I'll double down. If it doesn't, maybe try again another time.
So, have you read the Red Rising series? There's like
No,
5 books. It's awesome.
no.
It's sci-fi. It's great.
Oh,
It's kind of like,
I was going to say the one thing I do want to read that just came out is the new Read, Write, Own
oh yeah,
book by Chris Dixon, which unfortunately came out the day of, or the day before the Jupiter launch. And so it was on my list, and I was like, oh shit, I need to make sure the network is functioning. But I'm gonna read it today. I think I'm gonna try to chug through the entire thing today.
That's the thing about him too is he just has so many connections, obviously in the Web2 space, that people will actually take him seriously and read that book. Because I'm sure me and you would learn some really good frameworks and a few new things from there. But I think it's really for the people that are new to crypto or will come into crypto over the next like 10 years. That'll probably be like the canonical book that people start to read, which is better than people coming in and everyone saying you need to read the Bitcoin white paper. Like that's just not going to resonate with most people. So I'm glad
Yeah,
we have a new
exactly.
canonical text.
And the one thing about Chris specifically is that he made a name for himself by being a writer first. Uh, like he used to have all, and he still does, all these blog posts that he would publish. This is like before Twitter. And like most of this, or not most, but a good amount of the concepts that you hear today, like for example, all big things start out as like toys or something, those came from Chris. And the reason you know about them is because he wrote about them. And that is what, I mean, I'm not going to say that is what made his career, but that is certainly what helped it in amplitude, right? Like obviously, like the thing about being a writer is like you obviously need to have the ideas in the first place to write down. You can't, but I mean, writing also helps you generate ideas. But Chris is a perfect example of what I'm trying to get at with this writing hackathon, because if you can get more people to do that, who knows how many more Chris's there are, right? And now, exactly like you said, like showing people a fucking white paper as their first foray into like crypto is like crazy. I mean, I have PTSD. I did math in engineering. I have PTSD from reading white papers. So I try not to do it. I just look at the abstract. I'm like, fuck off. But like if it's a nice book or like a
Mm,
short like blog post or something, like
yeah.
Packy McCormick has a ton of good ones on this. He actually has a really good, I think still the best intro to Solana that I've ever seen, which is interesting. They're an extremely high margin and perpetual ways of telling the story of that chain and actually onboarding people to build on it and ultimately build that ecosystem.
I forget the name of the book, and this isn't what got me in crypto, but it did get me further into it. I think it's called Digital Gold. It was a big book that took off, and it was kind of like the founding of Bitcoin, but also into Ross Ulbricht and Silk Road and that whole story, and how he lived in Austin, Texas, and he lived in Sydney, like right next to the house that I used to live in. And it's like those stories, like you said, really drive attention. I think that read write own book's going to be huge. One comment I just want to throw in that I was going to talk about earlier when we were talking about Jupe and the token launches is when you're criticizing this from like, I don't know, the cheap seats, just understand too that yes, some of these founders that launch tokens can get liquidity quick. That's one of the really cool things about tokens, but also it's so damn stressful. If I was a founder, I would rather not have a token. I'd rather have 5 investors that I really like. They pay me money, they pay my salary for 5 years, and I never have to deal with it. And it's like these founders are getting so much pressure from people on Twitter, from foundations to launch tokens. They're getting pressure from VCs. Like it's all over the place. So this isn't some just free lunch for these founders to make a lot of money. Like I can't imagine like the mental state of some of these founders after they launch tokens. So I applaud everyone that has. I'm happy you do. So thank you.
Yeah, no, it's totally true. I think launching a token, I mean, being a founder is stressful enough. Being a founder in crypto is even more stressful. Being a founder in crypto on Solana is even more stressful. And being a founder on Solana in crypto that is launching a token is just like loss of lifespan or lifespan reduction type of stress, in my view. So kudos to the people who do it. And it's very easy to say, oh, you're grifting, whatever. And it's like, okay, there are much easier ways to grift. Okay, like people are saying like Jupiter is grifting or something, but like first of all, they built one of the best products in all of crypto. Like these aren't easy things to build. Like not anybody can build this stuff and succeed and keep their lead for this long. So like there's just such easier ways to grift that I'm so confused when people say, oh, these people are grifting. It's like you could maybe comment on if you think it's fair how much they're getting or something, but it's like you knew that heading into the token launch. Like it's not like it was hidden. The thing that's unethical as a rule in anything is if somebody hides information from you for their own gain. Okay, in a deal, in a marketplace, if you're hiding information. So, for example, if I'm selling you fish and the fish is fucking E. coli ridden or something, but I make money, that is unethical because I have information that you don't in this trade. But if you have the same information I do and it's public and it's been public this whole time, you don't have to buy the thing. You have all the information I have. So if you're willingly buying it and then complaining, I don't know. It's not a great look.
I was saying the best crypto founder was Adam Newman before like crypto was really a thing. Then the tagline for WeWork I think was we're not a real estate company, we're a technology company that's raising the world's consciousness. And it's like if you're an L2 or an L3 founder, you come out and you're like, we're not another blockchain. Like we're a decentralized permissionless DA layer that is raising the common intelligence of the super chain. And it's like, wow, those are pretty similar, but one's way better than the other. And I was talking to the research guys this morning, and WeWork was valued at like 68 billion in the private markets before it went public, and then they started doing the rounds right before the IPO. I think this is back in 2018, and all the professional underwriters is like, no, you're actually a real estate company. And I mean, it's a cool real estate company. It's a real estate company with tech thrown on top. You should be more like $8 billion. But you know who got the most money out of that whole thing was Adam Newman. But every single time Adam Newman has done a project after that, people did call him a grifter. Everyone wants to invest, including crypto people. I don't know if you remember this, but there was like some carbon credit company called, I don't know if it was Climate DAO or something similar. And they're like, we're partnering with Adam Newman. And everyone's like, buy, buy, buy. So it's like people don't actually care. Everyone wants a great story to be told. Anyways, I think that WeWork thing's pretty funny. So anyways, Mert, I think this is a good conversation. This is our post-Jupe clarity episode, our learnings, our takeaways, and what's next. 3 episodes this week, so it's a big week for us. But Mert, you have a good weekend.
Yes, sir. Likewise.
All right, mate. I'll talk to you later.